You're on a live 90.5 Spotlight with Jim and Darryn.
Western Sydney is such an important part of the New South Wales economy. It plays a strategic role and has many, many benefits, and it has its current challenges. I'm really delighted to have back in and on the phone on 90.5 Spotlight Maurice Smith, who's the Hawkesbury Nepean Valley Flood Mitigation Action Committee Secretary and Communications Officer. Let's get right on and into this. Maurie, you've been a strong advocate for looking at the dam wall and all the Flood Mitigation Action Committee areas. Let's just recap on that. Where are we at the moment? Because there's some very important things we want to tell our listeners today.
Yeah, Jim, it's been this. It's raising the dam wall for flood mitigation purposes is the topic, and it's been a topic within successive governments for decades. It's been investigated, and we've just had the latest EIS being tabled for public consultation and comment, and that is due to close. Comments due to close on the 12th of November. Now, the process that we're at, we've been through all the rigours of the preparing the EIS draft and then getting down. Where we are now is that we're out for the EIS is out for public exhibition, and it will get commented on. That will go back into and be revised. All those comments will be put together, and that will be sent to the minister. And then that will be looked at, and then a decision will be made whether to go forward or not to go forward. And if it goes forward, it will go through the relevant parliamentary process. So where we are at the back end we're at the business end of the job. So the EIS document has been released. It's quite a lengthy document, very detailed. There's an executive summary of some 48 pages, which tend to round up what's contained within the body of the EIS. It speaks in favour of the project because of the cost benefits both to the environment and to life and livelihood. There's some bullet points that are in the EIS that come out in the front of the EIS, and it's like the Hawkesbury Nepean Valley has been identified and has the highest single flood risk exposure in New South Wales, if not Australia. And that's been known for some years. And successive governments have known this. Raising of the dam wall would provide flood mitigation through temporary water storage to controlled release of floodwaters. So the aim of it would be the airspace that's created by raising the dam wall would hold back the inflow into the Warragamba Valley from entering the Nepean River, and so the floodwaters from the natural river flows would be allowed to abate, and then the water that held back would be released so that would minimise the peak of the flood. The flood inundation would be longer, but it will be less. Just as a ad hoc model that Mother Nature's provided us, in the February of 2019, we had a flood which was a catastrophic event in the Gross. So it's the most recorded rainfall, the highest rainfall event in the Gross River. That rainfall also fell in the catchment area of Warragamba Dam, Warragamba Valley. Just so happened, by luck, Warragamba Dam was at just a bit over 40%. So by de facto, the actual catchment area of Warragamba Dam mimicked what this airspace retention would do. And then in the March of 2020, Warragamba Dam was full, provided no mitigation effect for the downstream flooding, and we had a 1 in 10, somewhere between 1 in 10, 1 in 20 flood in that period. Both times recorded an additional flood height of around about 3.6 metres. So in the 2019 flood, we were prevented by about 3.6, calculated at 3.6 metres for additional flooding waters, but we did receive those extra flood heights in the March 20 flood. So it's now Mother Nature has proved what this process would do if it was constructed. So it's got to the stage where the government of the day realised that this needs to be done. They want to go forward with it, and our group really believe they have a moral need to do this, and also they have they would be culpable if they didn't do it, because they know that it can save life and limb, or help to save life and limb, and reduce monumental losses to businesses and also the community, because the community have to fund the restoration of what's just happened. I'm not sure what the cost is of the damage that was done in the recent flood, but it is quite extensive, and the environmental damage to the downstream parts of the Hawkesbury River around Windsor and a bit higher above and a bit lower down is quite catastrophic. There's quite a lot of damage done to the riverbanks and the environment down here, and the local communities' infrastructure for roads and a few other bits and pieces. So it's a Jim, and Darryn, I liken it to a seatbelt. You drive a car, you put a seatbelt on. The seatbelt will not stop you from having an accident, nor will this raising the dam wall stop you from having a flood. But the seatbelt may protect you from being killed in the accident or serious injury, and would greatly help you maintain a healthy lifestyle. This will do the same thing for the community downstream in the Hawkesbury Nepean Basin. It'll be a seatbelt for the community.
I think, Maury, if I can just support you in that analogy, I think it's a very clear and very visual understanding of the impact of raising the Warragamba Dam. And I think listeners need to understand, Darryn, that this is looking at one aspect of the total flood risk management strategy. It's not the only thing. There's a whole range of things that are going on here to bring about future generations in terms of safety and confidence about their environment. Maury, you had a meeting last night. What was the thoughts coming through that meeting? Because you've been a strong advocate in your role as Secretary and Communications Officer. How did they take on this, I think, incredible and well-written report?
Jim, it's endorsed unanimously by the group. A couple of clarifications, just understanding some of the terminology, and everyone was quite at ease with the explanations. When we went through the documents. The meeting lasted for several hours, and the outcome was unanimous support for the EIS as presented. Just to go back a page, Jim, on the comments you made about, this is a multi-pronged approach. The state government released a document called Reliance Resilient Valley for the Hawkesbury Nepean Basin. I can't recall, but I think it was 2017. And that was about a 9-point program, of which raising the dam wall was one. I think it was item 4. Whilst it's a key part of the strategy, as you referred to, it's not the only strategy. The New South Wales government has undertaken through Infrastructure New South Wales and other agencies to identify and raise some evacuation routes and identify others that are yet to be done. They have put up signage for evacuation routes through in conjunction with emergency services. There's been training. There's been a real big emphasis on flood awareness, and that's been done as far as taking a program to schools. I believe there's going to be a flood awareness program introduced into the primary school system, and I think it's already been done as a trial. So, as you said, Jim, this is not the only thing that's going on, but it is a key point of the mechanisms to look at protecting the downstream community from major flood events. Now, it's fair to say that there will be some issues upstream. There will be temporary inundation of around the area of Warragamba Valley where the current retention waters are stored, and I think in the EIS it equates to about 0.07% of the total volume, and the World Heritage Area, which is at the top of that valley, there's 300 hectares of that would be temporarily inundated, which equates to 0.3% of that area of the World Heritage Area. Now, in looking at all that, and there's an offset program being put in to offset those biodiversity and other issues that would be caused up there, which would those offset areas they're looking at either, from what I understand, they'll be either looking to acquire land that adjoins the national park with similar biodiversity aspects and historical aspects, or in other locations, so they can offset any issues that may take place.
Maury, your ability to synthesise such a complex document and put it into terms that people can understand is first class. You're on Alive 90.5 with Darryn and Jim, and we've been delighted to be speaking with Maurice Smith, the Hawkesbury Nepean Valley Flood Mitigation Action Committee Secretary and Communications Officer. We're going to go to a little break and then come back and find out a little bit more about this important part of Western Sydney, and particularly the Hawkesbury Nepean Valley Mitigation Action Committee and the work that they're doing.
You're on Alive 90.5 Spotlight with Darryn and Jim, and we're speaking with Maurice Smith, the Hawkesbury Nepean Valley Flood Mitigation Action Committee Secretary and Communications Officer, and about the very important topic of raising Warragamba Dam wall to act as one of many factors of helping mitigate the floods in the Hawkesbury Nepean Valley. Now, Maury, I understand that the EIS submissions, that's public submissions, close on the 12th of November, and it's very vitally important that there's so much public support that can be given to those submissions to make sure that this action of raising Warragamba Dam wall will happen. Can you lead us through that and how people can get involved?
Yes, Darryn, that's true. That contained within the document is the process for placing a submission, and you can do it either by writing a letter or you can do it by sending in an email, and all of that can be, if anyone wants to Google search just raising Warragamba Dam wall, they should be able to find the EIS in there, or submissions, and they should find out the process of going through that and getting the email address and or the title address that is sent in. It's very important that when doing that they title it correctly so that it doesn't get lost and it actually finds the source.
Now, Maury, we'll put those up on our website when we publish this podcast, so make sure people do get those links and email addresses. Now, a lot of people may be listening and thinking, Maury, you and your team, your committee, you're doing a great job. You're going to make it happen for us. Why is that not just what we need? Why do we need people to write their support in as well? Can you help amplify what you want to do as far as getting support for raising the Warragamba Dam wall?
Well, it's like all things that, in government, political and non-political. If it's not seen to get support, it may not get it. It's like the old story: the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I'm sure that there's concern by those up in the Blue Mountains and a few other areas upstream of the Warragamba Dam, and possibly some of those downstream of the Warragamba Dam, that don't think this is a good idea, because it's going to temporarily inundate parts of the national park or the World Heritage listed park. And yes, that is a fact, it will. But like as we've just seen, we've just had the first flood, I think the first release for 20 years. So this is not something that happens on a monthly basis and not something that happens for a long while. The intent is that the water wouldn't stay there for a period of much more than 2 weeks maximum. Of course, it needs to be released, be prepared for the next event. And so, it was contained within the EIS, the studies to say that the bulk of the fauna and flora up there will not maintain permanent damage. And so it's very important that the people that have that need to support this project put a submission in supporting this EIS.
You're right, it is a squeaky wheel that gets the job done. So everyone, if you are out there in the Hawkesbury Nepean Valley, don't just believe that this is going to take place. It will take place with your support. You need to help get your submissions in. You only have a few days, and those submissions will help make sure that this vital project for the Hawkesbury Nepean Valley gets done, gets built without one more delay. And Jim and I here on Spotlight, we support it, and we really hope that it will get done quite quickly. Now, Maury, a question to you, and hopefully it may not be up your alley, but me as an engineer, I've read some reports that some people believe that the way the dam's built, that raising it will actually risk it toppling over. What are your thoughts on that?
Darren, I'm the same. I'm pretty practically minded, and I'm not an engineer, but this has been looked at by engineering, by people within government. I know that people say that the Warragamba Dam was built on a fault line, and it's going to fall over, and then. But the engineers of the day, so they've come up with how they construct this to be satisfactory. The dam has already been upgraded to world class. The EIS back in '98 identified that the dam wall was below world class. Well, that just prior to that, the dam wall was below world class. Part of the original EIS that was approved but never went forward because there was a change in government, was that they were going to raise it to 22 metres airspace. At the same time, reinforce the wall of the dam and bring it up to world standard. But they didn't do that, and the change in government, they went another direction. They put in an auxiliary spillway to protect the wall from overtopping, and they strengthened the wall and made it stronger and brought up to world-class standards, and did a few other evacuation processes, evacuation routes around the district, the Jim Anderson Bridge at Windsor and a few other things. So. But that still didn't do any mitigation of the water that comes out of Warragamba Valley. All that being contained within the EIS, you also read that the anchor points on the sides, or the parapets, I'm not sure exactly what they call them, but they're going to be built at 17 metres. And the purpose of that contained within the EIS is so that if taking into account climate change, and I think it was by 2050, to achieve the same amount of mitigation protection for the downstream communities of the Hawkesbury Nepean Valley, there was a requirement to increase the airspace by 2 metres. It would be practical to be able to do it with the existing engineering. So to answer your question, I believe that the engineering is sound in my mind.
Just to summarise, we're running out of time. Maury, we could have you on all day because it's such an important thing. What I liken your committee to is people who are discovering and trying to mitigate a current problem with future solutions. You're looking to we know that things are going to continue to happen, and the potential of losing life and property, as you rightly have pointed out, is going to happen long after we're not around. And if we don't start to look at this and put into place an intelligent solutions, the problems are still going to remain. And I want to thank you on behalf of all those constituents in and around that area, and for all of us in Western Sydney in particular, for you and your committee for taking on such a strong and committed role in trying to overcome the problems brought about by just leaving it and pretending it'll go away, because it's not going to go away.
Jim, you're right in what you say. And look, since Warragamba Dam was built, the population downstream, I'm not sure of the figures, but it would be 5 times, if not more. And it's not that it's been just open slather for development in the Hawkesbury Nepean Basin. Development had been controlled at the best methods that they had at the time. And admittedly, some of the levels of construction were well below existing levels, and some were the controls weren't as stringent as they are now, but there's the controls as part of this Reliance Resilient Valley and further things. There's been new flood planning done, and new guidelines set for construction of dwellings or the updating of existing dwellings within the floodplain. to protect people and to reduce the number of people that are introduced to hazards in flood liable land. So it is a multi-pronged approach by the government of the day to try and minimise the impact of flooding on the community downstream. The community, we live here, we live in the valley. It's a productive valley, highly fertile valley. It's where people live all around the world in valleys. Yeah, so it's a community place, and it's been here since we've settled in Australia. It was the food bowl of Sydney. The Hawkesbury has a huge history in the growth of Australia, and will continue to have that for the betterment of the country. But we need to protect it. Yeah, so let's get the seatbelt on. Let's look after our people.
Well, Maury, on behalf of Spotlight, Darryn and myself, a most sincere thanks for joining us this morning. It has been most informative, up to date, and you've been able to synthesise, pull together quality information and provide our audience with really up-to-date information about the Hawkesbury Nepean Valley Mitigation Plan and Action Committee. Again, thank you. Have a wonderful day. It's been a real delight to have you on Spotlight with Darryn and myself this morning.
Thanks very much, and thanks, Darryn. Appreciate the opportunity to reach out to the community for support.
And listeners, please get that submission in. I think they have to be in by the 12th of November. So please get cracking and support this wonderful cause.